Kia ora, good afternoon. So, again, inspired by something posted on X, and it was to do with Star Wars, how old you were when Star Wars came out. It came out when I was 5, although technically it came out the year I turned 5. I was 4, just about to turn 5 when it came out. But as with Mel Brooks and doing my slapstick when the band plays, which is my homage to Mel Brooks, like I'm going to be paying a lot of respects to the people, the movie makers and all of that inspired me as a child, and George Lucas and the Star Wars series, and like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and that with all the martial arts movies that inspired me when I was a kid. And when I was younger, I want to pay my respects by doing their versions, like, Labyrinth is Lucian's Dragon, because I love Labyrinth. It's one of my favourite movies. And then The Rise of the Dragon Queen's going to be done like the Dark Crystal. You see where I'm going with it. So the whole Quantum Menace series that originally started out as just an idea for a comic book that I had all the way back in 2015. And it all started with my ex asking me a question, if you had a superpower, what superpower would it be? I chose invisibility. But then I came up with the idea of being invisible through being able to jump through time and having access to time through like crystal ball vision. And it all just kind of grew from there. And so then I started writing the comic book, The Quantum Menace, The Battle of Two Worlds, not realising that I was writing about future world events. And it was in talking to my nephew a few weeks ago, asking him for help about doing an action movie, that I realised that I was kind of writing the prequel to the Quantum Menace Battle of Two Worlds. But in order to do that, I would have to change the Quantum Menace from a woman to a man. So I changed him from Olivia to Ben. And I named him Ben just because I love the name Benjamin. I've always loved the name Benjamin, because the 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, growing up with that, the second eldest brother was called Benjamin. And I just love that name. That's why I called him Benjamin. And it might change, I don't know. But so then I wrote the Quantum Menace 1, which now that I'm looking at padding out the Quantum Menace 3, I'm realising the Quantum Menace 1 is kind of along the same lines of when Luke Skywalker found out he was a Jedi and he had to go to Yoda for training. It's kind of like that. Quantum Menace 1 finds out who he is, and then he goes on this quest to find himself and to get answers as to who he was as a child and what he was being used for, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's not, obviously, it's nothing like Star Wars, but there's influence in there. So it's like Star Wars may have invented the cake, but I took the sugar that's in that cake to make chocolate, if you know what I mean. So the influence is there, but it's not the same thing. So you just have to bear with me. So then the Quantum Menace 2, The Battle of Two Worlds, is how Ben meets all his friends, all the mutants, all the freaks, all the mutants, like at the X-Men school sort of thing. And they work together to fight the Shadowlands and trying to figure out who's responsible for the Shadow Folk, who are erasing history. Like, artists and writers and all of that from, the greats from history are being forgotten and time being erased from history. And so time jumps through reading codes and that's been hidden inside music and art and literature and all of that. In order to time jump, he gets sucked into them, in order to time jump to fight the shadow folk who are following him, so that he can bring his mutant friends out of their eras and centuries and all of that, to help him figure out who's responsible for the shadow folk, which I didn't realize at the time was talking about AI and people like Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and that, who are erasing people's memories and histories and accounts and social media and all of that. I didn't realize when I wrote it in 2015 that it was all going to happen in real life. Once I did, I knew exactly what the future held for the world, which is why I keep saying to people, it doesn't matter what they threaten you with, remember how this ends, because I wrote the ending, I saw the ending coming. And how the Quantum Menace 2 ends is that Art Morda, who is, in the Glasardenbrigaden, the ones with the false eyes, who are fed information through this false eye into the brain, they get thrown into the abyss. The ones that, like Cult Scorpio, that's what I call it, because they keep trying to mimic the mutants. They keep trying to mimic the Quantum Menace and the Mutant Legion, which is our version of the X-Men, because Quantum Menace 2 is going to be done like a comic book movie. And that's the one that we're going to make into like our first AAA video game. So that ends with Art Morda and the Scorpio cult, the Glasardenbrigaden, the ones who have been spying and controlling people and mimicking, mirror imaging the Quantum Menace and all of that. It ends with them falling into the abyss, which in real life is them being dragged through the court system for doing things like using grok to, the whole Tia Darling paper doll productions thing, all of that, and illegally erasing people's, like my Instagram and all of that, erasing memories in order to control the masses. But the Quantum Menace and the Mutant Legion expose it all, and they fall into the abyss, which is basically what's happening now, having to answer in courts of law for the whole grok thing and all of that, right? But of course I didn't know this when I wrote this in 2015. And then the Quantum Menace 2 ends with Heracles, who thinks he's Hercules, but he's not, landing on Earth in as like a big brain in a mech suit thing. And then the war begins, the galactic war begins, which in real life ended up being Donald Trump. And I had based Heracles on Donald Trump. Once I figured out what I'd written for Elon Musk in Quantum Menace 2, I wrote the conception of Heracles with Donald Trump in mind. And if you see recent events, Elon Musk has faded into the background because he's dealing with, a ton of court cases and things like that. And the second he kind of was removed from the picture, Donald Trump landed with this war with Iran. So everything that I wrote in Quantum Menace 2 has literally been playing out on the world stage. So the Quantum Menace 3, now the reason why it's a galactic movie, the Quantum Menace 2 is how Ben learns to master his supernatural abilities. Once he understands who he is, he gathers his legion around him to help fight this war, which ends up turning galactic because Heracles is he travels through time and space to mess with time, the time-space continuum. He comes from the past to land in the future, and in order for the quantum menace to stop him, he has to go back to the past in order to stop the future. And that's when it turns into our version of Star Wars. Now, the reason why Ben is able to do this is because he's immortal. He can't die. His kryptonite is the more he helps people, the longer he lives. But if he stops helping people, he becomes mortal. So of course, he's always put in situations where he can't not help people because he's kind of like the anti-hero. He doesn't want to do it, but he doesn't have a choice because it's all about saving humanity, sort of thing. So he's like between a moral rock and a hard place. He has to do it, even though he wants to be left alone. Kind of like Deadpool in that, but yeah, his kryptonite is if he helps people, he's immortal. If he doesn't help people, he dies. So he's immortal basically, and that's why he's able to. We're able to turn this into a space movie. He's also got people like Meltdown, who is himself like the oldest living organism in the universe, which is water. The oldest living organism on Earth, which is water, and water can survive in space and that. So he's kind of an alien, but Meltdown is the whole reason why Heracles has to have like a mech suit in order for the brain to exist, because when my son and I were writing it, we wanted to pay our respects to Daleks and Cybermen, with Davros and that, how they're like brains in a mechanical suit. And so the Quantum Ministry is our version of Star Wars, and I want it done like the original Star Wars. How George Lucas and that used those same kind of special effects is exactly how I want it made. Where there was no like CGI or anything like that. They had to use special effects, and they did a fantastic job. I was watching a documentary quite a few weeks ago. I can't remember if it was just before or just after Christmas, but talking about some of the incredible things they did, like when they were racing along in those little car things in the sand and making it look like they were hovering above the ground, and it turns out they literally just used mirrors in the desert to mask the fact that their little cars were on these plinths and that. That's what I want. I want my graphic design, I want my special effects department and that to really be pushed to the limits to come up with ways to make it look like we're having battles in space without using CGI and all of that. They did it back then, so we can do it now. And that's that Ray Harryhausen thing. It's like if they could make these iconic movies, then we can do it now. And I'm not looking for any of my movies to become iconic or classics or have cult followings. Although, if in 30 years' time people are having festivals all based around the movies that I created, because they become cult classics, that would just be like the cherry on top for me. But the whole point of me making these movies, whether they're good or not, has nothing to do with it. Whether they look professional or not has nothing to do with it. It's all about giving the kids schoolwork. But instead of algebra and spelling and all of that, they concentrate on their crafts and their skills and their passions. Just for a year. Just while I can heal them. So that when they go back to their homes, they've got money in the bank, they've got skills that they've learned that they can take with them into the real world. They can decide whether that industry is what they want to get into, by the time they go to college or stuff like that, potentially saving their families college tuition if they decide that's not what they want to do or whatever, or that they do want to pursue it and don't want to be a doctor or whatever. And it also gives them that healing, and they're around people and they'll always have access to us who understand them and will give them that support, so when they go back they're stronger and they're healed, and they'll know how to deal with the bullies and the naysayers and the antisocial family and friends in school and all of that sort of thing. If they choose to want to come back to us, then we just put them in the boarding school. If they decide they don't want to leave, we'll just put them in the boarding school. I'm not going to force these kids to go back. If they fear that it's going to have a detrimental effect on their mental health, or they're too scared to go back, or if it's unsafe for them to go back, they'll have a boarding school. And if I have to buy an old hotel or an apartment block or something outside of the foundation where they get picked up by one of our buses every day and brought into the foundation, and they've got like den mothers or dorm parents to look after everything at night, then so be it if I can't build on the grounds. But I'm not going to send any of them home if it's not safe for them. But I know that I'm going to have kids with incredible talent where it would be a shame to let them go. And when it comes to making movies like our version of Star Wars and all of that, and the Labyrinth and that, I just think these are the sort of projects that are really going to bring these kids to life. When they're making werewolf puppets and all of that, it's going to fuel their imaginations. And even like my goths and emos, my thrash metal kids and that, putting them in the Halloween department. So with my space movie, you already know I've already put videos up of what I want Heracles' spaceship to look like, because Elon Musk then tried to nick it. And then Wishy Paper Doll then tried to steal the conception of Heracles and pitch it to Elon Musk. It's all there. Like, that's why I jokingly call them the Scorpio cult, because they tried to copy me. They tried to copy everything I was doing, but it ends up when they pull the veil back, and they fall into the abyss, exposing them all, and it them having to answer for it in court, them having to deal with it from a legal perspective, falling into the abyss. So we have the Jedi and the Sith. Now, technically, in the Star Wars movies, the Jedis are the Illuminati. Technically. They're the elites. They're the ones who want to keep everything for themselves. And then, it's a little bit messed up. You got the clones and all of that, which, they do in real life now. But technically, the Jedi are the ones who are the elites, the ones who are trying to keep everything for themselves. And, Darth Vader and all that are the ones who are trying to bring everyone together under the Council of Unity and all of that sort of thing. So technically, the Jedis aren't technically the good guys, technically. But we're not going to go there with that. So we're going to have the Brethren, who are going to be our version of the Jedi, but they're the good guys. They're the people, all the alien races and that come together in order to fight the Axis. So we've got the Jedi and the Sith. In our movie, we've got the Brethren and the Axis. The axis of evil. I sort of, the names might change, but I'm definitely going to keep the Brethren. It's just I was coming up with these storylines when I was watching, joining in on my boys and their friends' coalition the games that they were playing on Discord. I was kind of inspired by that because we were writing all this stuff together before my ex did what he did and I lost the boys. But I don't know if my son is okay with me using the name Axis. If he's not, I'm happy to change it. But I know that the brethren, the ones that by this point in the movie, in the series, Ben is kind of like a cross between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. He's kind of the two of them combined. And then in the Quantum Menace too, we've got ASTI Richardson, who's the Egyptologist and archaeologist. She's like a girl version of Indiana Jones. She's based on my sister Erin. I tweaked the characters to make her about my sister Erin. And she's a specialist in ancient artifacts. And in the Quantum Menace too, she finds an artifact buried in the pyramids of Giza that helps her unlock the door to expose who the shadow folk, or the Douglas Arden Brigade and Art Mortar are working for, which is obviously Heracles and all of that. So Heracles and the Axis. So she's going to be in the series. She's going to be in because she's immortal as well. She's from, Ben meets ASTI when she was investigating the Tutankhamun investigations, with Carnegie and all of that in the 1920s. So she's going to be like Princess Leia, but she's modelled after my sister, so she's a flaming redhead. Lady ASTI Richardson is her name. When I told my sister about her character, my sister was just like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." So yeah, so she's going to be helping Ben decipher like alien codes and all of that in order to be able to draw time backwards so that he can erase Heracles when he's the brain in the jar. By stopping his conception as Heracles, by stopping him when he's just the brain in the jar, by stopping his conception of stepping into Heracles in this mech suit thing, he stops the invasion of planet Earth. And then all the aliens get taken down, then we get to have big space fights and that. My problem is, and this is what I kept saying to the boys, because when we were looking at, the video game concept ideas and that, and my son they were helping me research storylines and aliens and that by getting me to watch Halo and I can never bloody remember the name of it. Borderlands. They were getting me to watch those games so that I could get creative with coming up with ideas for aliens and stuff. It probably drove Thomas up the wall. I must have asked him about 1,000 questions about video game aliens and beasties and monsters and weapons while watching Halo and Borderlands, because they were educating me. They were teaching me, because they knew that what I was doing was going to be creating games and, video games and movies for my empire in the future, back in the days when they were helping me, when they were part of the team. He probably got sick of me asking questions, watching him play Doom. I even played Doom with him a couple of times. I even played Borderlands with him. And yeah, but the problem I have is coming up with aliens and beasts and weapons and that have never been used before. Because I don't like to be like everybody else. Even my Scorpion and at the end of TQM 2 isn't like you'd expect. I don't want to be like I don't want people to say, oh, that's just like in Star Wars, that's like Jar Jar Binks, oh, that's like blah blah blah, sort of thing. And I'm finding it so hard to come up with aliens because I know who aliens really are. I call them our brethren, as you know. But in TQM3, it's more symbolic of the countries that are helping fight the axis of evil with the help of all the downloads that I get in my dreams and, the God of creation, Atom, basically. So that's all going to be featured in, like, you'll see Atom, and you'll get to know who Atom is and who the brethren are and who the Council of Elders are, because they're all going to be in TQM3. It's just so hard coming up with the idea for aliens and creatures and beasties and all of that where they haven't been done before. Because with movies like, from my generation through to video games, what hasn't been done before? So that's going to be a hard one, because either way, whatever it is that we create is going to be like something that's already been created, and I hate that. I can't tell you the thousands of hours that I've spent asking my boys a gajillion questions and trying to come up with different sort of aliens and alien races and beasties and all of that for my space-based stuff. Obviously, a lot of it's going to be based on what I know for real life, like how they don't actually have spaceships and they don't need bodies, and I can put all of that in. You'll get to meet Atom and all of that. Whoever does the voice of Atom is just going to have to have the, like, a silky smooth, high resonating voice, the sort of voice that sounds like melted chocolate when you swallow it, that kind of silky smooth voice of Atom. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am at the moment. I end up picking up so much seeds being inspired by things like X, but it has to be done because it's like I said to my sister the other day, I can get all the TV shows up and running while we're making the movies in the background. We can have, in the year or so that it's going to take for us to get the foundation just right, while I'm out looking for talent and getting bums on seats for, the school and staff and mentors and all that sort of thing. And we're making the dating app on the side. I said, we can be... we can have the TV shows and they're up and running a lot faster than we will the big films. But when we are making the films, we can make a couple at a time. But I don't know what films we're going to make first. So it's kind of like I'm putting all these film ideas into a hat, and then we'll draw out which ones we're going to make. But whatever one we draw out, or whatever ones we draw out, I have to be able to have enough of the skeleton so that when the kids and the writing team and that come along and work together with me, they're helping me put like the meat on the bones, so to speak. But I have to have enough there where I can sit down in the meeting and say, right, if we're making this movie, this is the storyline, this is the plot, this is the blah, these are the characters, let's go. And then, because I'll have the storyboards all there, which is why I've turned all my social media into my vision boards. So I want it to look like this. I kind of want it to look like this, but I want to turn it like this, and can we do this with that, and blah, blah, blah. That's why I tore everything of my social media down and have handed it over to my vision board so that I can just pull it all out and say, are we able to put this with this? Can we design the room to look like this with a bit of this? See what I mean? So when I get to Switzerland, it's all there ready to go. And because I know that once I throw them the work and head out to look for the talent and look for the staff and that, everyone's busy behind the scenes doing everything they have to do. And then hopefully within about a year, we can open the gates enough to be able to at least get people coming to the shops and the hotel as we're starting to put the school in place, and the things for the kids to do for the school and the Amber Wilkinson school and all that. But if I have enough hands on deck, I'm looking at maybe just over a year where we can get it all done and changed. And if we work around the clock, if we work really hard, about a year and a bit, we can have it up and running. So I need a lot of hands on deck. I need to make sure that I've got the right lawyers and legal people to help me get the grants and permits, and then put the call out for the kids. I need marketing, HR, a PR team. I need a personal assistant. I need all sorts. But we can do it. If I have all hands on deck, if I have enough hands on deck, then I'm kind of anticipating just over a year we should be able to do it if we are working around the clock. So yeah, so that's my space movie. Then we have to come up with all sorts of like space costumes, but it's great for the design department and it's great for the special effects team, and so that's the storyline for my space movie. Not all of the mutant legion are going to be able to travel with them, but with the immortal ones like ASTI, Lady ASTI, absolutely. So, because I had originally set the Quantum Menace, Battle of Two Worlds in Brooklyn, because obviously at the time I was writing it, I came up with the idea in 2015, and I think it was earlier than that, but I actually didn't start putting pen to paper until around about 2016-17, when I thought I was going to America to be with Martin, who lives in New York, which is why it was based in Brooklyn. Because I thought, when we film it, we'll be in New York anyway, which goes back to the dream I had this morning, because it was based in New York. With them trying to take the kitten back and me fighting for my children and saying I'm not going to disappoint my kids, is because the three of us were looking forward to immigrating to New York, and it was taken from us. But the fact that the lamb in the bucket and the people taking the photos and blah blah blah, and me waiting for the taxi in New York, is like the seed was planted in New York. The seed was planted for New York, but the taxi is saying you're not you were never destined for New York. You were destined for somewhere else, and that's Switzerland. So we didn't get to go to New York. That dream was taken from us, but I'm hoping that if I can get justice and the voice see the truth of what's really been going on, they'd be okay to want to start a new life in Switzerland instead, because I know a couple of years ago when we were originally looking at going to Switzerland, they were really excited at the idea. But I thought I had people to go to on the other side, which I don't now, but it's like I don't need anyone. When I've got the money to do it, because I'll have the money to do it, I'm going to be so busy, like I don't need anyone. I can do it myself. I don't need anyone. I'll have the money to do it all myself, which is what I'm going to do. So, yeah, so that's my space movie, The Conception of Heracles. It's just, how do you come up with aliens and beasties and all of that are original? It's going to be hard. I can take some of the ones from Quantum Menace 1 and 2, but yeah, it's going to be hard. But I'll get there, like it's all part of the challenge, and I'm always up for a creative challenge. Oh, but definitely by the time we make that movie, I'm going to need a lot of really smart, creative, nerdy types to go, well, what if we make the aliens like this? What if the Brethren Council of Elders looks like this? Blah, blah, blah. It's the same when I'm doing my RPG LARPing kind of D&D style events and board game and video game. Your War 2. I'm going to need all nerds on deck for that one. My son called it an Ort's wet dream. So, right, so I'm going to go now. I'm going to make myself a coffee, and I'll speak to you later. Another one. I was going to say bites the dust, but that sounds fatalistic. Another feather to add to the cap. My cap is starting to be covered in feathers now. I'm going to end up looking like a bird's head, like Birdie. That's what I used to call Horace when I used to have dreams of Horace. Not Horace. Oh Lord. It was Horace. What am I saying? I used to call Horace and Hoth. The Egyptian gods Hoth and Horus. I used to call Hoth Birdie, because I used to think Horus was Birdie, but then I realised that Hoth was the one that was coming to me in the dreams as a kid. And when I was a little kid, I used to call Hoth and from my dreams Birdie. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I know I sound confusing, but my mythology is complicated. I understand it, but I live in a world where nobody understands me. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Bye.